So in Hull, at a high level, we talk about three different types of identifiers. The more identifiers you have, the more flexibility you're given in being able to stitch these profiles together. So we want to cover the easy cases if you've got email address or a domain name for a company. Where it gets a little bit more interesting is if you are able to have some sort of external ID tied to these users. And an external ID is usually a representation of an ID in a database. So, for example, if you're a SaaS company and someone signs up for your service as a trial or as an active account, typically on the back end, you'll have an ID that's related to an individual row in your database, and that's not going to change. And if you have that ID, that's a pretty powerful way of identifying users because even if they go into your product and change their email address, you're still tying them back to that same ID. And then finally, anonymous ID is sort of a big concept for us, which is it sort of encompasses all of the IDs that you may have at any point in time. That's not a first class concept. So, an example of an anonymous ID may be a cookie that's associated with your browsing session when you're on the website. We don't know too much about you, but we know that this cookie value is tied to your browsing activity. In addition, we also use anonymous ID to carry service IDs as well. So when you begin stitching together these user profiles from Salesforce, HubSpot, all these different services, those all have IDs as well. And so what we do is we take those IDs and we allow you to have multiple anonymous IDs, just like you can have multiple cookies and multiple service IDs. And we allow you to stitch together profiles based off of a collection of anonymous IDs. This allows us to have lots of flexibility in tying together different profiles and using different types of IDs.